Hey everyone, welcome back to the Saints Network podcast, your weekly bite-sized chunks of all things. I say bite-sized, it's like an hour long.
Yeah, I know.
It's our weekly podcast for all things Southampton FC and currently all things Premier League. That's probably going to change in a few months' time. I think that's almost... Fun fact for everyone at home. Mathematically now we can't win the league.
Disgraceful.
Absolutely
Sack
disgraceful.
everyone.
Now, mathematically, with Liverpool winning at the weekend and us losing, we cannot win the league.
Just devastating.
Anyway, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are watching live on YouTube, please make sure you've hit all those magical YouTube buttons. Hit the like button if you enjoy the content. Smash subscribe if you haven't already. And you can hit that bell notification icon to be notified every single time we go live or drop a new video. If you're watching on demand, those things also help. And if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or any of your other podcasty type software pieces, hitting that like, follow, all that kind of stuff really, really helps us. Helps the engagement, helps the algorithm. You people are incredible. I see we have some people in live chat already. We will be keeping an eye on the live chat throughout the stream. So if you want to get involved in the show, please make sure you try and catch us every single time we go live, which will typically be 8 p.m. every Sunday evening, with some exceptions, some rare exceptions, because family, work, etc. Football, perhaps we can't. Normally we'll be live 8 p.m. in the UK every single Sunday. If you want to get involved, make sure you're there in the live stream, in the chat. We are marching on to 500 subscribers. We're about 53, I think it is, away from that right now. It would be incredible if we could hit that in this next week or so. We are also halfway towards the number of watch hours that we need to be able to do some fancy things in the future, like turn on super chats, gifted memberships, etc. We've got some ideas, Ash and I, for the membership program, and super chats will be a great way of being involved in the stream in future. It'll be like texted into TalkSport or phoning in. You could literally put out a super chat and we'll talk about your point, reference Southampton or the Premier League or football in general. Super exciting, isn't it?
We could be Jim White.
Yes, just without the white hair and terrible Scottish accent. I am here this evening with my wonderful brother Ash. My name is Liam. I'll be your host. He's my co-host. We're talking all things Southampton. As usual, we have a raft of show notes to get through. And we have been told so far that people's favourite feature on the show is VAR and away. And when I say we've been told that, like 2 people have said it. But that's the only 2 people there's any good feature. So, I'll take it. And it's very relevant this week. We've got a lot of VAR and away to get through at some point, but we're actually going to touch on VAR to start with. So, if you are unaware, if you're a Saints fan, I'd be surprised if you're unaware, but if you're unaware, Southampton lost 3-1 to Newcastle at home at St Mary's yesterday. I was at the game. We did take a 1-0 lead.
Yes.
And then we decided to concede 3 goals. We did the same sort of thing at Manchester United. It's just against Newcastle, we sort of fell apart a little bit quicker than that one. We'll go into a game review, but if you're new to the show, I don't like to just lead with the game review because everybody else does that anyway. I like to lead with a specific topic that comes out from the weekend, and I have specifically picked VAR this weekend.
Can't think why.
I think it's very relevant in general because of what's gone on this weekend, but specifically for the Southampton football game against Newcastle. Yesterday at 3 o'clock kickoff at St Mary's, right? We did go 1-0 up, right? We will talk about this in the match review a bit later on. We then levelled 1-1, or so Newcastle, I should say, levelled 1-1 with a penalty that I think is a contentious decision. We'll go into that in just a moment, right? Let's just set the scene first. We then concede a second goal, which was a moment of brilliance from Isak, to be fair. And then we concede a third because of some, quite frankly, shocking defending. We then score another goal, which pulls us back into it. And I think it's about 5 minutes towards the end of the game, we could have 10 to 15 minutes of real tense football where we might even try and get a point out of it. And for Southampton's pride at the moment, at the very least, every single point is important because we don't want to be beating Derby's record of getting less than 11 points or 11 points or less in a season, in a Premier League season, because at that point we will earn the accolade of the worst ever Premier League football club. And I think right now we are probably going to take that accolade, which is sad. As a Saints fan, that makes me sad, but it's looking likely. Let's be honest, fans. It's looking likely.
Gets our name out there, doesn't it?
But that second goal that we score gets disallowed for offside. Now, when that goal is disallowed for offside, there is information that comes out on the PGMOL Twitter page that basically says there was no evidence that the ball was touched from a Newcastle player, and so they disallowed the goal. No evidence. If there's no evidence, surely you go with the on-field decision. That was one of those. And then if we look at the penalty, I looked at the penalty. So live, I'll hold my hands up. Live watching the game, the challenge came in from Joe Aribo. I looked at that and I was like, that's going to go to VAR, and I reckon they give a penalty. And they did. And I was like, I'm not surprised. I'm honestly not surprised. The crowd were not happy, right? But wasn't surprised at all. Having come home and watched it repeatedly, I'm not so sure. I don't think it's black and white. I don't think it's clear. And this was compounded by the amount of time it took the VAR officials and the match officials in general on Saturday, in both occasions, to make these decisions. And I've seen a lot of comments out there, which I'm going to ask you a question on in just a moment. But they took 3-4 minutes of time to try and make these decisions. If it's that unclear, my opinion is we'll just go with the on-field decision then. Like, if you can't clearly go, that's the wrong decision within a minute, say. So I think they should be putting time limits now on decisions, if I'm honest. Because I think taking 4 minutes to go, and this is where we go into the title, is VAR destroying the English game? And I'll tell you for why. Aribo puts a great big tackle in, and we're holding on to a 1-0 lead for a game that we really want to win. We really need to get something out of, and we probably don't think we're going to get anything out of because Newcastle are flying this season. And Saints fans are cheering the tackle, and then it's a case of, and the referee's gone, no penalty. At that point, you've got instant relief, right? Instant relief washes through you. Oh my God, thank God. He's put a challenge in. Because if he doesn't put that challenge in, Isak's scoring, probably. Right? He's prolific. He's probably scoring. So he puts that challenge in. Instant relief washes over you. You get that little moment of adrenaline of, oh, thank God for that. And then it goes VAR, and it's, oh, for God's sake. When Fernandes runs through one-on-one and scores, instant elation. The celebration music goes up. Limbs everywhere, right? And then VAR, I think so much of the excitement in the top flight of English football is being killed by both VAR and incompetent individuals using VAR. I have asked a poll. If you're watching live, there is a poll up right now. There's 3 options, whether you keep VAR with major changes, or get rid of it. I'd love to know what you guys think. We'll end the poll at the end of the stream. If you're watching on demand or listening on demand, let us know in the comment section which one you would do. And if you would make changes, let us know how you would make those changes. I'd be quite interested to hear. So stick that in the comment section below. And commenting on the stream also really helps us out, helps our algorithm, all that kind of stuff. So do that stuff for us. But I think having experienced it twice yesterday for 2 very different things, and I came away feeling very deflated. Now, I saw someone say on Twitter, before I bring you in, if the VAR didn't exist yesterday, the game finishes 2-2. And I actually think that's a nonsense statement, because if you don't give that first penalty, you do not know how the rest of that game is going to go. So potentially, Saints could go right on the up, and they could score another 2. Potentially, Newcastle could go on the attack again and score 3. You cannot say for 1 minute that by disallowing Fernandes' goal and giving the penalty, if you'd done the reverse, it would have been 2-2. That's an impossible statement to agree with, in my opinion. However, it absolutely could have been a very different game if both those decisions had gone the other way, right? Or one of them had gone the other way. It could have been a very different game. So for me, the relief that then was undone because it ended up being a penalty, the elation at scoring the goal that was undone because it was disallowed, it's kind of ruining the reason why I loved going to football. And you and I have been to football for years and years and years and years and years. We've celebrated some fantastic moments, and there's been some highs and some lows. And we've celebrated winners against the Skates at St Mary's, and we've been at Fratton Park and watched them score. So much of that. I'd love to actually do some research. It'd take too long, and to go through everything we've watched and realise how many of those moments would have been taken away from us if there was VAR. So I personally think it's ruining the game. What do you think?
Yes. Where to start with it? Is it ruining the game? I think it was brought in with the right intentions. And again, we've discussed it many times. If it's used right, then it comes across quite well. However, when it was brought in, we were all told it was going to be used, and I'll use yesterday's game as a reference. It was only going to be used to overturn clear and obvious errors. Now, excuse me, sorry, got a frog in my throat. When we talk the most amazing moments, there's a lot of arguments out there that would say that the winner that we scored in 1976 FA Cup final will be disallowed because of VAR and an offside decision. Obviously, it wasn't around then. We'll talk moments that we didn't get. Gabbiadini's ghost goal in the whatever year it was we made the League Cup final that shouldn't have been disallowed because he was onside when they gave it offside. There is always been a big club bias around decisions being made. In terms of VAR in this country at the moment, it is a shambles. I think it's even more of a shambles personally when it first started. I think it was really bad when it started, and it started to level out a bit.
Yeah.
Just in yesterday's game, it took 4 minutes to disallow, or not disallow, it took 4 minutes to give the penalty for Newcastle. It took about 2 minutes for them to have a look at it. Then it took 2 minutes for referee to have a look at it, which is even more of a joke because they only gave 3 minutes added time at the end of the first half, which just doesn't make any sense anyway. Is it a penalty? You can argue for and against. It's like we discussed last week. There's so much that's subjective. That's why people love football. There's so much that's subjective. Is it a penalty? Is it not? Was it a bad tackle? Was it not? Who's the best player? You know, that sort of stuff. And that's why we love it. That's what we can talk about. If it's taken 4 minutes to make a decision, is it clear and obvious?
Well, here's the thing as well, right? So I agree with what you've just said, but we were discussing decisions. You and I specifically have discussed decisions and discussed instances in football for years.
Yes.
Right? Before VAR was a thing. Before
Yes.
VAR even existed in the English league, right? We're discussing the same things. It hasn't stopped.
If anything, we're discussing it more.
I would argue, yeah. I think it's made it worse. Because people can't... nowadays, with VAR in place, people are less accepting of mistakes. Because how have you made a mistake? You've got VAR. And we've got a lot of things to go through about like a lot from this weekend to go through about VAR. So we're discussing the same things. It hasn't taken any of these decisions away, these contentious decisions. They haven't gone away. They've got worse. There's more of them. And football is... We were looking at the rules of the game after discussing the red card last week, right?
The one that I was right about.
You weren't, but we looked at the, and if we looked at the rules of the game, it's a very subjective interpretation, and I think most fans are. I think the majority of people are most frustrated with the inconsistency that's applied across the league in general. This isn't just at the Premier League level. This is at every level. You can have a decision in one stadium go one way, and the same ref can make a different decision in a different stadium the next week and they go a different way and they go back again the other way. Like, that's part of the problem, is the inconsistency. But VAR is implemented in such a diabolically terrible way. It's so poorly implemented, and it's so frustrating because cricket does great jobs with video officials, rugby does incredible jobs with video officials, American football, hockey do great jobs with video officials, and yet the Premier League, probably definitely the biggest football league in the world, and it can't get it right, and it takes ages. And I saw someone in chat say that it deflates. I think it was Star says, someone who's brand new to football. It's kind of interesting watching just how much it deflates the players and the fans. That's the other thing as well. Aribo puts a challenge in, and people are patting him on the back, and then the VAR overturns it, gives a penalty. You can see the players' heads drop.
I think the point of it being, and evening Ben says out and out pen, player gets nothing to the ball, evening gents. He's a Newcastle fan, just to make that very clear, so that's why he's saying that. To make it very clear, we're not saying it is a penalty, we're not saying it's not a penalty. We're discussing we can probably get into that a bit later, but we're discussing the length of time that it makes to make a decision in the games. I saw someone put it, Kai said it, rugby do it so bad. Is there any reason I cannot award the try?
Yeah.
Is there any reason that I should award a penalty? Is there any reason that I should disallow that goal for offside? Is there any reason that I should send him off? We don't seem to be asking those questions. Mike Tuff, I think, is back tomorrow night, briefly, for Howard Webb, and I think pretty much we're going to be on it for some of the decisions anyway. Why aren't we learning from that aspect of it? It's not a case, and this, make it very clear, this isn't about where the decisions went for and against Southampton. We're going to get into more of them later, and there are some that are very contentious, but it happens everywhere we go. We see it on TV. We look yesterday at the decisions that we'll get into. Is it clear and obvious? And sometimes decisions are made and a red card's given or a goal's given. You go, well, why have they given that? How have they given that?
If we talk about rugby for just a moment, and I don't want to bore football fans of rugby, I'm a big rugby fan. Okay, I don't want to bore football fans of rugby, but I'm a big rugby fan. If we talk about rugby for just a second, the other thing you find in rugby is the on-field referee has the game. He's in control. He's in charge, and his assistants are assistants, and they assist him and they advise. I find at the moment with VAR specifically, we don't have a situation where the assistant referee, who's the VAR referee, is assisting or advising. He's flat telling. There's a phrase I used yesterday in the stadium. Backseat refereeing is what's going on.
I kind of agree, and it's something I actually heard Sam Matterface and Perry Groves talk about on TalkSport earlier. And I will discuss it when we go into the proper segment of VAR in a way, is that it's the referee hierarchy. There is a referee hierarchy. You've got your more experienced referees and your less experienced referees. But I won't go into detail with that now. I'll go into detail about that later.
I think it's killing the game. And on my personal opinion, and I voted on the poll with my own YouTube account, my personal opinion was get rid of it, sack VAR off. Because I think if the Premier League come in and say we're going to make some changes next season, they'll still bugger it. And there's been some passionate chanting at St Mary's this season, right? Around certain things. There's been some noise from the northern wall. There's been some noise from the stadium in general. There was some toxic noise around Russell Martin in that game against Tottenham, etc. Right? I don't know if I've ever heard a chant or two chants as passionate as what we heard on Saturday, or as loud. Right? One of them included an expletive and then VAR, and it rhymes with duck, and it was very loud.
No idea what you're talking about.
Very loud, right? And the other one was something about how football's dead or something like that, or this isn't football anymore. Or I can't remember the exact word. I've written it down actually somewhere. Fans chant duck VAR, and it's not football anymore. And the stadium very clearly got to a point where it's like, this isn't football anymore. It's not, because it isn't. Because that excitement, and I think for the majority, you know what, I agree with you. I think there's a big club bias. I don't think that big club bias is as bad as some smaller clubs make out, and I don't think it's as bad as some fans make out. I mean, we'll go into the decision to send off that Arsenal player in VAR and away, right? And I also wouldn't go as far as to say, I'm sorry, Newcastle fans, I wouldn't say there's a big club bias towards Newcastle. I don't think there is. Newcastle are a decent side. They're playing some lovely football. They've normally got some of the loveliest fans, right? Genuinely mean that, having spoke to a few of them.
Yeah.
I think there's a big club bias towards Newcastle at all. Genuinely don't think that, right? I don't think that whatsoever. So I don't think it's quite so bad, but there is a monumental inconsistency that happens with refereeing. And I would suggest that for the majority of teams, and I think you probably could, Alex Ferguson's Man United, you could take them out of the equation. Certain circumstances, Liverpool, there's a reason why they're called Liverpool, right? Take them out of the equation. I think the majority of teams, before VAR existed, you won some, you lost some, and on the whole, for a season, it kind of balanced out. For most.
Kind of, yeah.
Not always 50-50, obviously, but it kind of balanced out. And I think that you kind of just accepted that. Human error is the thing, and you accepted human error in football. And I personally think, I'm going to hold my hands up here, I think human error is part of what makes football exciting.
I think that's what makes VAR so frustrating.
I think so.
And Harry's just made the point there. We've all agreed, Harry. Everyone agrees. It's just not consistent enough. And in terms of where we are, it's interesting you said that. So obviously, there's a few defences here. So firstly, the Premier League would turn around and say, well, actually, every single club got the option to vote against getting rid of VAR at the start of the season. Only one team said no,
Wolves,
which was Wolves, because they had a bad year.
Well done, Wolves.
They've actually had a good year with VAR, so I'm pretty sure if they had that vote at the end of the season, it would be very different. And secondly, someone said it in one of our comments, or maybe in the chat last week, be like Norway. They've sacked it off. They've had enough. They got rid of it.
Be like Norway, Premier League. Be like Norway. So 3 votes in the poll. Keep VAR with major changes. Get rid of VAR. What are you voting?
I've gone with my head, not my heart. My heart says get rid of VAR, but they're not going to get rid of it. So I've said they need to keep it with the major changes. Okay. Well, we've got more on VAR later on in the show. We've got lots of things to talk about with VAR because it was a busy weekend for VAR stuff. Yes.
Interestingly, my wife said to me, so the podcast tonight's going to be about 90 minutes. I was like, no, it's an hour. She was like, it hasn't been an hour yet, has it? I was like, there's actually quite a lot to talk about.
We'll see how well we can do.
So let us know in the comments section below, people who are listening, either on demand or live, what you think about that, what you think about VAR, your opinions. I see some of it coming through in chat. We can't engage every single person in chat all through the night, otherwise it will be a 4-hour podcast. But please stick it in the comment section below. We reply to every single comment on YouTube. So thank you to all you wonderful people that have done that so far. So let's get into the match day review, right? So we lost to Newcastle,
yes,
which interestingly is the 6th consecutive home defeat at St Mary's Stadium, which is the first time in Saints' history. It's 140-year history. It's the first time they've lost 6 games at home on the bounce.
Yes.
In Russell Martin's last 4 games in charge, we conceded 12 goals. In Ivan Juric's last 4 games in charge, we've conceded 14 goals. We're shipping more goals, arguably, than we were under Russell Martin. Having said that, there are glimmers of hope. There's glimmers of good play, but it's not enough. And I almost titled the stream tonight after watching the Newcastle game. I almost titled the stream tonight, "Players are stealing a living." I told you, I did say that to you.
You said
because the performances from some individuals, if I look at their first goal, which was Aribo's penalty, I'm sorry, Ben and chat, I think it could have gone either way. And that's where I think it wasn't clear and obvious, and that's why VAR should not have overturned the on-field decision.
Yep.
The on-field decision should have stuck, only because I think it's not clear and obvious. I'm not saying it wasn't a penalty, but I don't think it definitely was. And the only people that I've seen say definitely was are Newcastle fans. And when I watched the highlights on Sky Sports, the commentator said, no, definitely not, he's got that wrong. Right? That's how 50-50 it is.
Yep.
So I don't think it's clear and obvious. So we'll start off actually with a positive. 6 minutes in, we fight. Right. This is where I get so incredibly frustrated with our team in general and our tactics, and the fact that these are Premier League footballers. Well, actually, let's be honest, most of them aren't. They're players playing in the Premier League. Is more accurately is more correct.
Yep.
Being paid tens and tens of thousands of pounds a week. We put 8'9" Paul Onuachu up front. Okay. We play Armstrong off of Onuachu, who spends half of his time sat on a wing with his thumb up his arse. Right. We then, over the course of 90 minutes, with the exception of free kicks and corners, whip maybe 4 balls into the box. 4. The only one that went anywhere really near a Southampton Football Club player then was met by our centre-back, Jan Bednarek, who's somehow in the box, right? What are we doing? That's shocking. Anyway, first goal happens, whips ball in, Bednarek gets up, beautiful header.
It's a great cross from James Bree as well.
It is a good cross from James Bree, who I've been relatively impressed with since he's come into that back three. Relatively. I don't think he's been good, but I think he's not been worse than the others that have conceded tons and tons of goals. Actually, interestingly, for the other goals that we conceded yesterday, it wasn't him that was caught short. Whips a ball in, beautiful header from the captain, who now, as a centre-back, becomes our joint top scorer. Good. Comments on the goal, or just good goal, or
I don't think it's. I think the plaudits for the goal.
Can you get that frog out your throat?
I need to get it out of my throat. I can't go away. I think the plaudits for the goal need to go to Kyle Walker-Peters and his work down the right hand side. He was wrestling up against Dan Burn. Dan Burn's the same size as Paul actually, so he's about 20 million feet tall. You know, the two of them, if they could have a flipping headbutting match, they'd be headbutting out floodlights. It's a good cross. James Bree's been left obviously unmarked at the pitch. It's gone in. Bednarek's got his head to it. Again, like we said about Paul, he's let well. Onuachu was behind it, so I think if he doesn't do it, Onuachu's going to get his head in it, whether he puts it well or not, it's not a chance. It's a good finish. Love it. 100% great. The problem is it's that part afterwards, and obviously Newcastle started very well, and I've, as a personalised thing, and I'm not saying this, but I've got a lot of respect for Newcastle. I like the way they are. They're a horrible team. They play the dark arts very well. They get in your face. They break with absolute rapid speed. They've got a flipping good striker. And yeah, they had a bit of a blip last week, but they've been doing quite well. Probably bottle it in the League Cup again, though. But in terms of where the game went, we just seemed to lose. The penalty decision did take a lot out of us, and obviously they scored straight away afterwards. The second goal, we can point fingers at a few people. I think it's a great touch by Isak, and he's buried it. The third one, I'm interested to know your thoughts, actually, on who potentially you would put at fault for the third goal.
Taylor Howard-Bellis.
See, I disagree.
Have you seen the gap between him and Bednarek?
I do.
You could drive a 747 wingspan through that gap.
I understand.
And he's playing him onside.
I understand where you're coming from, but my issue is with it is that Tonali has made that run from deep in midfield.
And no one's tracked him.
running with him.
No one's tracked 100%.
Ugachukwu looks at him twice and just lets him.
So I've been very, very, very positive about Ugachukwu-Aribo partnership for both Man United in the second half at Nottingham Forest. So there's no point breaking the game down moment by moment and going through each goal. There's no point doing that because, you can watch other podcasts for that. You can watch it on Sky Sports. But honestly, that partnership at Man United until Leslie came off, and or was it Uribe who took over, whichever way around it was, and it's Nottingham Forest second half, thought was great, right? Yesterday, they didn't click the same. And the comment I made in the stadium, actually, quite interestingly, wasn't just about the fact that they weren't quite clicking. The physicality and fitness and speed of Newcastle looked like they were in a different league to us. Like, quite literally, they made us look like a League One, not even Championship. They made us look like a League One side in comparison. They were faster everywhere. speed that we had players just being left behind. Just leaving us behind. The physicality was higher. They were more brutal. They were more bullyish. Like, we didn't stand a chance. And you think, for me, Leslie and Ariba are pretty big people, pretty big blokes, right? And they were bullied in that central midfield. Now, so I think actually perhaps it is slightly unfair to just blame Taylor. I did find it, however, hilarious that you put that ball in the back of the net. Tonight, put the ball in the back of the net, and Taylor starts screaming at Aribo and Lukachukwu. Probably correctly, they should have tracked him. Leslie specifically should have gone with him. He's still quite young, he's still learning. But Taylor Harwood-Bellis, there's no excuse for the fact that he is also 3 pitches away, having a cup of tea somewhere else, and at the same time playing him on side.
I think it's just a comedy of errors, isn't it?
To be clear, Taylor also wasn't the only one playing him on side. James Bree was also playing him on side at the same time. The only player that stepped up at the time was Jan Bednarek. Jan Bednarek, by the way, is the same player that got skinned by Isak for the second goal. Now, don't get me wrong, the touch from Isak was beautiful. He's a player on form, right? His touch was incredible. Mm-hmm. So good. And he probably could have had an hat-trick yesterday, to be honest with you. His touch was wondrous, and he just snips it in the corner, and you just can't stop it. What concerns me is the goal that we scored was a cross from our right centre-back into our centre-back, and then the only other goal that we nearly scored was an overhead kick from Taylor Harwood-Bellis in the box. Our most attacking threats yesterday were 2 centre-backs.
Well, 3 of them, if you count the person who put the cross in.
Onuachu might as well not be on the pitch. Right, he's got this thing about bringing it down in his chest, and then he daddy long legs is around for a bit, and then the ball goes. I think he's worried about his legs literally tying in a knot before he falls over, right? And he loses the ball. Adam Armstrong,
where it's like starting a game with 10 men in it.
Adam Armstrong is one of those. I like Armstrong in the Championship, but in the Premier League, Armstrong is literally stealing a wage. How he is still getting started, I don't know. But then Cameron Archer comes on and looks awful. But then he's not being played. I don't get it. You could hear the frustration and fear from Southampton fans when they found out that Sulemana, who a month ago most of us would have driven to a new club ourselves, and people are now going, "Oh, we haven't got Sulemana. We're going to look weak in attack because we haven't got an 18-year-old playing." And we haven't got a player who a month ago we all thought was not worth the money we paid for him. So we end up with, let's be clear, 2 actual strikers in Onuachu and Armstrong playing up front, followed by another actual striker coming on in Cam Archer, who didn't threaten at all. They did not look dangerous. The only player realistically that looked dangerous, interesting, and like they might unlock Newcastle a little bit yesterday, Matty Fernandez. We're not keeping him in the summer.
No, not a chance.
He's too good for us.
Like I said,
I want to keep him.
The third goal was a comedy of errors, and it seems that after the third goal went in, we kind of just fizzled out, and then the non-goal from Matty Fernandez kind of potentially might have given us a kicking for life, but we just fizzled out. We just looked done, and I think that no one expected us to beat Newcastle. I didn't expect us to get anything. Overall, I think even with the VAR decisions, I think Newcastle, if on the balance of the game, Newcastle were fair winners. I think that Alex McCarthy made a couple of saves. I actually have question marks over him for the third goal because he was just rooted. Then again, Tonali's running like a flipping. He's flying when he heads that ball in front of him. He's absolutely flying.
He's powered through, absolutely.
So we're going to get more of an idea of where the team is at in terms of fighting battle at bottom level when we play at Pullman Road next week, which incidentally we're both at.
We're both going to, yep. We'll both be there.
So
come and say hello if you're there as well.
We're going to find out exactly what level we're at against them. Now, Ipswich obviously came off the back of a battering of a 4-1 loss at Liverpool yesterday. And we'll be discussing them later again in VAR away. But there's... at some point, and I'm not going to go into this now, and I'm not going to go on a massive tangent.
He's learned a new word.
I've learned it, I'm going to use it. At some point, if we carry on going the way we're going, despite the fact the squad is where it is, we're going to have to start having discussions about potentially the manager's position or where we are. Next week, I think, is, and I've mentioned this in the notes, I think it's the game that we need to get a result from, albeit something.
Right, so the we loved Russell Martin, you should never have sacked him crowd are very, very vocal, very loud on Twitter right now.
Suddenly, yes.
Right, which frustrates me because we're where we are because of him. I don't care what you say.
I agree.
And if anybody in the world for 1 minute thought that we could, I don't care if you'd have bought in Pep Guardiola at Christmas instead of Ivan Juric. Look at what he's got to work with. So he came out in the press statement after the game or before the game, I can't remember which one it was, and said categorically, we need to keep our best players for next season. Who? Fernandes? Who else?
I think that's a whole nother show to do at another point in terms of what players we need to keep hold of. Like I said, I think that in terms of where he is, knowing where the club is going down, I would potentially not be surprised if for him it's just to sweep that one under the carpet.
But honestly, so you've watched the Newcastle highlights or the Newcastle game, sorry.
Watched the game, yeah.
Right, you've watched the game. Honestly though, you've also watched all the games. Who would you really honestly, forgetting the Championship, right? Let's forget the fact that we're going to go down because I know you have a bias to go, he'll do a job in the Championship. Ignore that, right? Imagine we were staying in the Premier League. Just imagine, just if Eddie Saints fan out there can still do this, just use 1% of your brain to go, we stay out by a single point at the end of the season and we managed to do that even without Matt Le Tissier, right? Imagine we stayed in the Premier League, okay? Yeah. Which of those players in the squad, not even just the starting lineup on Saturday, but in the squad, would you be happy to see putting a Saints badge on next season, genuinely?
At this current moment in time, none of them.
Fernandes, dibbling to a point. I think
the passion's overtaken to the point that I just want to kind of rip it up and start again. And I get where you're coming from. The thing is, there's never going to be that great big handover. You're never going to get rid of 23 players.
Of course you're not.
If you're talking sort of long term, obviously, someone like Taylor Harwood-Bellis, I actually think has been pretty good the last 3 games. You want to keep hold of someone like that. He's got a lot of potential. He's quite young. You're talking about Aaron Ramsdale, Matty Fernandes, Tyler Diblin.
But Taylor Harwood-Bellis needs to be along, and I know people love Jan Bednar. I've heard this loads in the stand, right? Oh, we need to keep Jan Bednar, we need to keep Taylor Harwood-Bellis. You're talking 2 of the back 3 who have shipped about 8 million goals this season.
And that's the problem. So
they're not good enough. I don't care how much you like Jan Bednarik. I don't care how much you like Taylor Harwood-Bellis. They're not good enough. They're getting battered. And you could also then look at the fact that they're not getting protection from their 6s. So you're not getting protection from Aribo or Gachukwu. You're definitely not getting protection from Flynn Downs. And I actually watched the second the 4th official held up his board yesterday to show that Smallbone was coming on. I actually watched people get up from their seats and leave. That's how bad our bench is. But people left.
This is the problem that we've got, and you just referenced it to the whole idea of, I don't want to hear what's going on in terms of, what's the word? I don't want to hear, they're good in the Championship. Is that we talk about a player like Wolves Milbone now, and we've mentioned it with Adams Armstrong and stuff like that, and they go, it's good in the Championship. Just go. Will Smallbone, he's one of our own. Get a bit of a profit for him. It helped PSR. Adam Armstrong's been here for 4 years. He's been dreadful for 3 of them. He was good for 1. Move him on. He might go and absolutely batter someone in another game. I feel like into this in ages, but
I feel like Armour he got a hall pass at the start of the season simply because he scored that goal at Wembley. And I'm sorry, but in the Premier League, you don't have space for that level of not nostalgia, but you know what I mean. There's a word for it.
I will do some research because I can think of 3 or 4 off the top of my head on players that score the goal that wins their game, wins the team the promotion at Wembley in the playoff final, and then do not make it in the Premier League next season. I guarantee you it's more than 70%.
Well, there's other teams that have come up recently. There was a team that's been talked about on social media recently. I can't remember who it was. Was it Bournemouth? I can't remember. And they came up and they were ruthless. The people they got rid of, they were ruthless. Yeah. And they basically rebuilt their squad completely, and then look at what they're doing.
You got teams that come up.
Was it Bournemouth? Was that Bournemouth?
I can't think. Brighton might be what Brighton were one that very well did it. So Brighton came up and they put Chris Hughton in charge, and they said we want to play possession-based football, but what we need to do first is survive in this league and create a team that can survive, and then slowly but surely they started to integrate it. Now look at what they are. I see people talking about Bournemouth in the chat and what they're doing different. It's good recruitment. It's good.
Well, so our wonderful mother is in chat saying, what is it that Bournemouth can do that Saints can't? Winning becomes habitual, but what they're doing right other than winning, is it that they have passion? I don't know if it's just passion. Bournemouth turned over Forest yesterday 5-0. Right? Was it 5-0, 5-1? 5-0.
5-0.
5-0. I don't think they've got a fit striker.
Nope.
And
Harry, correct us on that, please.
I don't think they've got a fit striker right now, Bournemouth. And they put 5 past Forest, who were maybe still our 3rd in the league, right? The way that team is playing, it's not just passion, that is it. There's determination, there's energy. They've had a consistent squad on the whole. I think they've got some injuries, But that manager is working. And if you look at the manager of Bournemouth and the big teams that he's played against, he's beat basically all of them.
But what Bournemouth have done is they've been very clever in the way they've recruited. So they've gone out there and they've bought players that they're going to slowly integrate. They've not gone out there and done. I mean,
it's Nottingham Forest who I'm thinking of, by the way, who scrapped all their players.
Yeah, they bought about 25 players, didn't they?
Yeah, look what they're doing.
And
none of those players. Sorry, none of those players for Forest you would look at and go, they're a world beater.
They are now.
Look at them now.
A lot of them have gone, but it's a dog eat dog world, the Premier League, and we're just too nice in the whole thing, from the boardroom to the pitch. Will Smallbone comes and has a brilliant game in the Championship, and everyone starts saying, "Oh, he's one of our own." Brilliant, but he was having a bad game. Well, he's having a good game, 1 every 4 in the Championship. And don't get me wrong, I love the idea of homegrown players; it's great. But he's been here 3-4 years. He's out on loan at Stoke. Stuff. Just move him on. Get him to go and play consistent football.
So if you could sum up the game this weekend against Newcastle, if you could sum it up in a sentence.
Sum it up in one sentence. Was expected. Move on. Next.
I think it was expected. I don't know how. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can literally summarize it in a sentence. But for me, we were. What's the word I'm looking for? We were clueless in attack. We had no way of unlocking Newcastle's defence. We couldn't. We had no control in the central midfield. No control at all. They were all over us in central midfield, and we had nothing to unlock.
And just to make that's Newcastle with another League Cup semi-final in midweek, which they'll probably win and then bottle it in the final again.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. You're Ivan Juric should say time for Wellington, which is interesting. He's
Very
a wing back, is he not?
He's a left back. He is
more. I've brought that one up on purpose. Carry on.
Yeah, I can see why. I can see the show notes. He's only played. I think he's only played 45 minutes for under-21s. I think I'm in that phrase. What's the worst that can happen?
Well, this is the other thing, because what we're going to do now, team, is we're going to move on to the transfer news and the squad news and rumours, right? And there's a couple of things in here that are. I think there's one I haven't put in the show notes, but. It was reported in the Total Saints podcast chat by Alfie, who is the head or the lead editor for the Daily Echo for Southampton Football Club, that Dom Ballard, this isn't the show notes, sorry, I saw this yesterday and I meant to add it in, is possibly going out on loan, right?
Yeah.
I would put him in the squad.
Why not?
I would absolutely put him in the squad right now. And I don't understand. A player who sort of scores goals for fun when he's involved, granted not been involved at Premier League level, stick him in the squad, Don Ballard. So Juric going, it's time for Wellington, our left back. I'm not sure left back's the problem at the moment.
Yeah, Ryan Manning's feeling really good right now, isn't he?
Ryan Manning to be fair, up until yesterday, I thought he's been pretty good. I don't think he had a great game yesterday. I think he's quite poor. And when you have a 25-foot bloke in the box, right? You hit the byline, you put crosses in. There's when you move into the Premier League, I think there's some basics that we've not been doing, right? If in doubt, get it out is a phrase I heard loads as a kid playing football. If in doubt, put your foot through it. We didn't do that enough at the start of the season. We got punished for it. We've had the most goals from our own mistakes, right? One of the other basic things you get taught at football when you're young is hit the byline, put a cross in. Hit the byline, put a cross in. Hit the byline, and okay, if you're playing Armstrong and Archer up front, maybe that's not quite so prevalent. You put low crosses in. You got 89-foot tall Paul up front. Get to the byline, put crosses in. Okay, we didn't do it. We didn't do anywhere near enough. All right. So Juric says it's time for Wellington, a left back. Not going to solve our problems because our problems is we can't put the ball in the back of the net. And at the same time, we have a £2 million bid rejected for Andre Garcia from Reading.
Yes.
Guess what position he plays?
Goalkeeper.
Left back. I don't know if we're intending, Saints, to field 11 fullbacks on the pitch at once. What is this recruitment?
I don't know. I don't know anything about the player. Noel Hunt came out and said that we're not meeting an evaluation. I just don't know, because obviously we'll carry on talking about left backs. Charlie Taylor is apparently, there's a deal that's been agreed between the team, between us and Hull, for Charlie Taylor to go out on loan. And we're waiting on him to make decisions. So we potentially might have a new left back coming into the team, a new left back coming into the squad, and a left back going out the squad. So yeah,
what the is going on?
I don't know what's going on with left backs, but we love a left back.
Meanwhile, looking at letting someone like Don Ballard go out on loan, we obviously have also. This is an interesting one. I saw some negativity from Sheffield Wednesday fans. Shay Giles, recalled him. gone back out on loan to Sheffield Wednesday.
Yes.
Back to the same team with a 6-figure fee. Lol. But Sheffield Wednesday fans going, it's all about the money. It wasn't about the money. We were very, very concerned that Ugachukwu was going to get recalled. And I think if Ugachukwu gets recalled, that's why we recall Shay Charles, because he fills that spot.
Yep.
Because I don't think Downs and Smallbone are up to it. And I'm not saying Charles is, but we know the other two aren't.
Yep.
So I think that's why we recalled him. He's now gone back out on loan to Sheffield Wednesday. I know a lot of Sheffield Wednesday fans are very happy about it. I know Kazarin in chat, who is a Sheffield Wednesday fan, is very happy about it. And he's bossing it at the moment. He's playing really, really well. Had an assist at the weekend as well.
Assist yesterday. Yeah.
But we've got, these are players that, I'm going to be honest with you, Nick, in chat right now. Honestly, I would have recalled him and put him in the squad. And this is one of those things where I think I have accepted relegation. I think you've accepted relegation. And despite the jokes on social media, I think the majority of Saints fans have accepted relegation. So your Shay Charleses and your Don Ballards, bring them in, get rid of this useless pile of absolute crap that's currently not performing at all and doesn't look like they care, and get them Premier League minutes.
No, I agree.
Get them Premier League minutes. And you know what? They probably continue to get beat. They might start to gel as a team. And then what happens next season is you have the core of a team that's already been playing together at a much higher level attacking the Championship.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done personally.
No, I agree.
They're not doing it. At least they're out on loan getting experience in the relevant leagues, I guess. But talking about the current squad as well and wing backs, one issue we might have is Kyle Walker-Peters. Heavily linked at the moment with Galatasaray.
Yes.
I don't see him going to Galatasaray. I think he's going to want Premier League football.
It's a weird
especially
one.
wanting to try and get in the England squad.
It's a weird one from what we can see, obviously, all over social media. They're just not necessarily in the right places in terms of their valuation. I think we're just going to have to wait and see. We've got, 8 days? 8 days. So we'll see what happens I think it's 11 o'clock on the 3rd, isn't it, that the window closes?
Yeah, it's the Monday.
So the more indication towards that, obviously, will be in terms of the team selection on Saturday at Ipswich. So I think that one's just going to have to fester and we'll wait and see.
Yeah, we've also seen a lot of interest in. I mean, I want Kyle Walker-Peters to stay. There was a moment yesterday at the end of the game. He stayed longer than any other player, and he handed his shirt over, which to me is a goodbye.
He's done that quite often, though. To be fair, that's not unusual for him.
I don't know. It felt a little bit like a goodbye yesterday, but because that's our last home game before the window shuts.
Let's just wait and see.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go. And honestly, with less than 6 months left on his contract, at this point we can make some money off of him. I don't think I want another. What's his name? He's playing in Italy right now.
Che Adams.
Yeah, I don't think I want another Che Adams situation.
Scored 2 yesterday.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Thanks, mate.
brilliant.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, cool.
Fantastic.
I don't want another Che Adams situation where he disappears on a free as one of our better players. Talking of which, there's been a lot of interest in young old Tyler Dibbling, old Mr. No Pads, right? Yeah. And Southampton have slapped a minimum 55 million price tag on him.
Yep. So the
team.
team
That's a fair price tag for Tyler Dibbling.
Nowadays, yeah, it's the English tax, isn't it? So Leipzig are the team that have apparently piped up, which I mean, apparently they were looking at sort of 20, 25, maybe even 30 million, which is laughable. Leipzig, people would go, really? But if you think that they're part of the Red Bull Group at the moment, which is currently the head of football development at the Red Bull Group is currently Jurgen Klopp, so he knows what he's looking for. Tottenham also interested, Manchester United also interested, Newcastle also interested. We're fairly certain we're not going to sell him until the summer. Again, let's wait and see. Remember, in terms of PSR, any profit we make on that sale is pure profit.
But he struggled going to Chelsea because homesick.
He was younger then, though, wasn't he? Things
He
changed.
was, yeah. It's interesting, though. He struggled going to Chelsea because homesick and came back to Southampton, so that'd be interesting to see what happens there. I think he could be an absolute wonder kid for us in the Championship next season. And I think if he, money talks, unfortunately, but I think if Tyler Dibbling, I've heard rumours that both Dibbling and his family himself were happy with offers made by Southampton to extend his contract. It was his agent, who happens to be the same agent of, I think, Van Dijk, who was turned around and said, no, we're not happy with it. I think if Dibbling stays and we work hard in the Championship next season, I think potentially we could be promoted. He could be one of our absolute wonder kids. We go up to the Premier League. He becomes Saints' main forward. There's every shirt in the stadium's got Dibbling on the back. He almost becomes, not quite, but almost becomes the next Letitia, right?
There's no way on this earth that guy is staying in the Championship next season.
I don't think he is.
No,
that's
not
the
a chance.
problem, right? Okay, interesting. Aribo also linked to leave at the end of the season. Do we care?
No, not really. He's been okay. He's not been the best. He's not been the worst. He's okay.
I tell you what, there's been games this season where I think he's been wondrous. And then there's other games where he just and this is a part of the problem I find with our squad in general. Games where I watch him, I go, he's been fantastic this game. Next game, goes completely missing.
He's VAR. He's inconsistent.
Very inconsistent. Yeah, absolutely. Gavin Bazuna out on loan.
Yeah, people are talking about potentially going out on loan. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we're not gonna go too much into loan watch right now because I've just seen the time. However,
I can do it very, very quickly. Everyone loves Roddy Edwards at QPR despite the fact they lost yesterday. Sam Adozi didn't play today. Juan scored again for Gospete today, who nearly beat Fenerbahce but had a random 10 minutes and lost 3-2. Done.
Juan scoring goals, though?
He's scoring goals.
Okay, interesting. I think the most terrifying... So we've also bought this new guy. This, what's his name? Brack. Danish fella.
Yes. Brombeck.
Yeah. He's come in. Looks handy. Obviously wasn't ready for yesterday, but... have heard that he'll be ready for Ipswich away. Be interesting.
Yeah, very much.
I'd like to see him alongside. I'd actually like to see him alongside Fernandez with Ugochukwu in the midfield. That's what I'd like to see.
I'm going to agree with what Matt just said in terms of Aribo. The only thing we'll miss about him is his chant and his song, and then we'll stop singing about ex-players every flipping game. It's done.
Yeah. Okay. And on to our favourite section: VAR and away. Oh my God! This is why I was nervous about time so much.
Well, let's skip through it because we've not got long left. Let's skip through it.
So we can talk about the Saints parts quickly. So Aribo, Isaac, penalty decision. I genuinely think this could go either way. This is not clear and obvious.
Yeah.
Should have gone with on field. I'm not saying Newcastle fans. I'm not saying it wasn't a penalty. But I'm saying it wasn't clear and obvious. It should go with on field rather than overruling the referee. I'm frustrated that every time the referee walks to the screen, he overrules his decision, and very rarely they go, no, I feel like I'm right. It annoys me. Fernandez offside, same again. No factual evidence that Shah touched the ball. If there's no evidence, go with the on field decision rather than overruling the referee. That frustrated me. And then the one that we didn't talk about earlier was a Joe Linton challenge on Onuachu, which could have been a red.
Should have been a red.
And there was red given for lighter this weekend in other games.
That's my issue with it, is that, and we'll get on, I don't want to spend too long on this one because we'll get on to the next one. It's a horrible, the fact is that it wasn't even reviewed. That's what annoyed me about it.
The worst part about that was not only was it not reviewed, but a free kick was given to Newcastle.
Exactly. So,
and I don't know if you have seen this. There's stills all over Twitter. You can have a find of it on Twitter if you have a look. But Joe Linton's studs are up and in the side of Onuachu's ankle. It's his foot's up.
And the player's known for it. He's a dirty player. I actually quite like him as a player, but he's a dirty player. He's known for it. And it's one of those things that it can happen in every game, but in that situation, I generally don't understand why it wasn't reviewed. Because, move on to the next one.
Yeah, so there was a red card for Arsenal, right?
Yes.
Wolves. Martin Lewis-Skelly gets red cards. The first time I saw this in review, so what happens is we have show notes and we update the show notes and we put VAR decisions in there. And if I put one in or Ash puts one in, the other one will go and find it and watch it. So we know when we come to the show, we are talking about something we've both seen, okay? The first time I watched that, I was like, that's a bit harsh to give him a red card for that. I watched it slowed down. I was like, still feel that's a bit harsh. I've watched it multiple times because it's very hot topic at the moment. And there is a couple of angles where I can see how that could have been given as a red card. There are a couple of angles. This is another problem I have with VAR, however, because when you slow it down that much, it can often look much worse than it actually is.
So that's true in terms of the Onuachu challenge as well. So I'll cover that. I am absolutely flabbergasted that this got given as a red card. I am absolutely flabbergasted that it wasn't reviewed. And that's why I said about earlier when we discussed in terms of hierarchy. So Michael Oliver's the referee, Darren England's the VAR. Darren England's a fairly new referee. Michael Oliver's our senior referee. Michael Oliver gives that red card quicker than anything. Doesn't even stop to think. He straight away, boom, red card. Everyone is going, hang on a minute, what's going on? Yet, later on in the game, João Gomez steps on someone's foot and Rambo just come up with it in chat. Joe Gomez steps on someone's foot, does what is effectively worse, and is given a second yellow than a red. Arguably, it's a red card, but the punishment's obviously very different.
It should be straight red, though. Because that does make a difference.
If you're being consistent, it should be straight red. Out of all three of them, the João Gomez yellow card, the Martin Lewis-Skelly red card, and the Paul Onuachu or Joe Linton no action at all, Joel Linton's is 10 times worse. Martin Lewis-Skelly, it's a cynical challenge. It's a cynical challenge. He's trying to stop a breakaway.
Is it cynical? I don't know if it's cynical. I think the way he catches him, studs up. So the PGMO have come out and said they support the decision.
Which is absolute rubbish.
So
absolute rubbish.
Obviously, Arsenal are going to be appealing this decision. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with the appeal.
Yeah.
The expectation that I've heard on TalkSport is that it will be rescinded because at the moment he is now the third youngest player ever to get a red card.
Yeah, he's only 18.
Yeah, they're talking about it today. The opinion is it will be rescinded. And I looked at that a few times. And again, it's one of those weird ones, isn't it? This is where VAR could be very, very strange. Because in every sort of semi-fast to normal speed, I watched that and I was like, I don't see, that's unfair. He's just caught him a bit late.
Yeah.
When you slow that right down and you see studs up at the halfway up the leg, etc., not half up the leg, sorry, half up the shin. I was like, I can see how you potentially at that speed, at that angle, really, really slow, could give a red card, maybe.
No, I can't see it.
I think the referee was very quick to make a decision there. And I think, there's a lot of stuff online. This is quite interesting as well. It's a whole different topic we won't dive into now. But Michael Oliver and Arsenal fans do not want him refereeing their games anymore.
No, they don't.
And there is a lot of conspiracy out there. Someone said that now means that Lewis-Skelly is banned for the Newcastle game, who Oliver happens to be a fan of. He's a Newcastle fan.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I think for a minute that whilst pulling a red card out, he thinks I'm going to ban this particular player from playing against Newcastle. I don't think that's what's going on, if I'm honest with you. But
I'm going to stand by. I don't think it's a red card. I can't believe it's been given as a red card. I can't believe if it's not overturned. I think it's an absolute joke.
Yeah. Talking about absolute jokers, Stephen Field, look, that was a penalty all day long, and that goal was offside. 6 points says it all.
But we haven't said it wasn't a penalty.
We haven't said
it wasn't offside. We've just said, was it clear and obvious in terms of should it have been disallowed? And Kazarian, I'm really sorry. I've been working all day. I haven't seen the raised red card.
So Sky, like I said, when that penalty got given, Sky Sports went, oh no, he's got that very wrong.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm saying. It's opinion based, isn't it? This is part of the problem. And VAR was brought in to overturn clear and obvious errors, and neither of those were clear and obvious.
Yeah.
I think and I'll put a fact out there though for all these.
Why should I do that fact? I need to go to the toilet. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'll put a fact out there as well for all these Newcastle fans, who I have said previously I think are some of the most wonderful people on earth, but some of them are becoming quite toxic online. I still think Newcastle beat us. I still think Newcastle are a significantly better team than Southampton, so you don't need to be all butthurt about it in chat. But for the sake of VAR, not because I think it makes the result different. I don't think the result is different. I don't think if the penalty isn't given, I don't think the result is overly different. And if the goal that we scored that was offside was given, I don't think it changes the net result. I think Newcastle outclass us in every area of the pitch without any I don't think there's any debate there whatsoever. But we're not talking about whether Saints should have won or drawn, because we both think that they probably deserved to lose the game. We're talking about VAR, whether it's fit for purpose. And VAR was brought in to overturn clear and obvious errors, and neither of those were clear and obvious. Neither of those were clear and obvious at all. And the statement that PGMO made about the offside that they then gave specifically stated there was no evidence to say that the ball was touched. That's it.
But it's those words, isn't it? It's clear and obvious. This is the whole point that frustrates us. When we'll go into the other ones in a minute, but what is clear and obvious? What isn't clear and obvious? Where is that? And Howard Webb will come out and mic up and go, oh, well, we think they've made a good decision here. We think they've made a bad decision here. But what's wrong? So we discussed obviously Martin Lewis-Skelly's
red card, which you're dead cert no red.
I'm dead cert no red.
What we saying, chat? I can see how it's been given. I think if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd have felt hard done by. I specifically I'd have felt double hard done by when the second yellow was given for essentially a worse challenge.
Yeah, and
that should have been a straight red.
Obviously, you talk about conspiracy theories. I mean, fair play, Arsenal went and got the win. It was a great finish by Calafiori. They got the win. It is what it is. But with all three of them, if you put the Onuachu challenge, the Martin Lewis-Skelly challenge, and the João Gomez challenge, the challenge Onuachu is worse. And I'm not saying that even then I think it necessarily should be a red card. I think in today's day and age, it is a red card. But compared to the other three, it's a lot worse. Why was that one not looked at?
So we've then got the Veltman handball for Brighton.
Yes.
But that wasn't what the penalty was given for?
It was given for handball.
Which one was that one?
It's the one... it was the one given for Everton, sorry, where he gets challenged. He goes to challenge Beto, and his arm comes across, and he bats the ball.
Oh
away.
yeah, and he scoops out of play.
Yeah. So for me, this is where what's the word? This is where VAR is used right, because he's gone for that. His arm is in a completely unnatural position. He's moving it out the way. He
literally scoops the ball.
He's literally scooped the ball. And everyone's saying, a few pros came out and said, I don't understand how that can be given as a penalty. I'm like, well, I do.
If his arm doesn't move and it hits his arm, cool. He literally scoops it.
The argument there would be that it was a foul by Beto on Veltman. I don't think it was, but I also think that if Veltman goes down and doesn't scoop his arm, the referee in those positions 9 times out of 10 will give a free kick. So
you think that potentially Brighton could have had a free kick there? Or the other way around, whoever...
I think Brighton could have had a free kick, but I think there can be no complaints over the penalty being given.
Okay, interesting. Split in chat. Matt says not a red, yellow all day long. Edward says no red all day long. Do you mean not a red or no, it was a red all day long? Let us know. Garci says definitely a red, but the others were too.
See, I mean, Garci, I don't think that one was a red card, but if we're talking consistency...
Did it get reviewed? Did the Martin Lewis Kelly red get reviewed by VAR?
They obviously cleared it. Yeah, they cleared it. They looked at it and cleared it.
Do you not think this is also part of the problem with VAR? Because again, remove VAR from the game, referee gives an instant red card. We're still talking about it, but we allow human error. And now because VAR exists, we're saying no, there should be no human error. But the problem is when you say there should be no human error, is you're basing it on opinion. And this is the issue with refereeing football in general and the laws of the game. So much of it is down to interpretation and opinion. So when people get it slowed down by a system like VAR and they get to watch it on video and on replay at a million different angles at 10 different speeds, let's say for sake of argument, not saying this is an opinion, but let's say for sake of argument, you think it isn't a red and I think it is a red in our very in our own spheres of influence and elsewhere. We don't know each other, and I'm dead certain that wasn't a red card, and I go, that was a red card, and it doesn't get given. I'm going, I can't believe they haven't given that even with VAR. Conversely, you're now going, I can't believe it was given even with VAR. This is the issue with the laws of the game and the fact that it's so interpretive. So you're dead set that it isn't a red card.
I'm dead set it's not
and there's
a red
people
card.
out there that are saying it is. Because interpretation. And this is this is where I think VAR actually tends to breed a lot of negativity. Because you can allow for human error when there's no VAR. VAR tells us we should be removing human error, but you cannot remove human error with 80 million video cameras in the stadium when interpreting the laws of the game is based on opinion often. So I think that's an interesting one that will be discussed for quite a while. The handball for me was a handball. I think you're right. I think if he just goes down instead, he probably gets himself a free kick. We then move on to the Enciso.
Julian Enciso.
I think the challenge at Anfield. Awful challenge.
What do you think?
It wipes him out again. I think it's no different to last week. He leaps into it. It's almost like the old days of watching WWE Raw and a flying knee comes in.
See, I put this one, and I was actually very interested that this one happened, and you changed your mind. You obviously haven't. So post-stream last week, a friend of mine, Steve, if you're watching, hello, Steve, thank you, by the way. He sent me a few things to do, because he's involved with the FA and a few bits and pieces around the refereeing now. The word for it, obviously, that we use is reckless. Now, if a challenge is reckless, it's a yellow card. That's the punishment, it's a yellow card. If the challenge is reckless but then endangering an opponent, endangering the safety of an opponent, then it can be upgraded to a red card. The issue being is where do you draw? So the Enciso one on Endo, I think the reason why he gets yellow card and it doesn't go to red card is because he turns himself and he tries. It's like the rugby. In a rugby player, you can lift the player upright, but you've got to land him safely. Yeah?
Yeah.
If you land a player on his shoulder,
dump him on his head, you're getting sent off.
You're going to get sent off.
Right.
So with this one, and with the one last week on with Walters and João Pedro, I think it's very interesting that it's again that subjective basis. If the player is being reckless, attempted murder. Thanks, Edward. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Edward in chat. If you're listening, Edward in chat said attempted murder. That one, honestly, I think both were. Both they've leapt into the challenges high. At that point, they've got. You can argue they're trying to protect themselves, but they've put their opponent in danger. The second you come off the ground, you lose control of your own body, and that's reckless immediately. And if you lose control of your own body recklessly, going towards a player, you're putting them in danger. They're both reds for me.
we could talk about it all night.
We could.
I'm going yellows for both. I'm happy with yellows for both.
Yeah.
If a Southampton player was sent off for that, I would be massively
We're not allowed
annoyed.
to disagree because someone on the Facebook page says that all we do is agree all the time. I mean,
No.
I clearly haven't watched all the episodes, but apparently all we do is agree all the time. We move on. I think red, you think yellow. Again, chat, interested to know what you think. Comment section as well if you're watching on demand. We then go on to the penalty for Brentford at Palace.
Yep.
Darren England VAR calls a retake based on Palace
encroaching.
Palace powers encroaching on the box. Right? What do you think of that one?
So I think that the reason I put this is firstly, so the ball gets played into the box. I can't remember who clears it. Will Hughes' hands go up and it clearly hits him in the hand. Obviously, you're looking at that and thinking he's in a, oops, sorry, not the microphone. He's in a natural position. He's trying to block his face like that.
Yeah.
It hits his hand, it goes away. You then get into a position where Lacroix comes across, and I can't remember who he fouls, and goes down.
Which isn't a foul.
I think it's Nathan Collins who goes down. It's not a foul. It's not a penalty.
It's grade A dancing on ice.
It is absolute pathetic. It's in terms of football, it's what we see. Players, yes, there will be an argument out there that Lacroix has been quite reckless and throwing his leg up like that. He's 6'3", 6'4". He's thrown his leg up like a ballerina. The minute a player sees that, he's going to go down like a sack of crap. We know that's what's going to happen. Referee gives a penalty. Fine. Firstly, the fact that wasn't even reviewed in no time is
shocking,
beyond belief. I was supposed to be working, but watching it, and I was absolutely.
So did they have a VAR review at all?
It was cleared. Yeah, no time. It was cleared. They didn't even go, "Oh, VAR is going to have a look at this." They showed the penalty. The penalty was given. They showed the replay. They showed the replay again. Brian and Bremo took. I think it was when Bremo took the penalty. Picked it up.
Oh, can we just slight pause? I can't. That penalty technique. I want to snap his. I want to snap both of his legs. It's ridiculous.
So anyway, past that because all the pros are doing that nowadays.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it. By now. Run up and hit the thing.
So in terms of the penalty itself, he obviously misses the first one, and the second one is given. It's given as a retake for encroachment. We can argue that. I'm not going to get into the argument whether it's encroachment or not. We can argue the penalty. What wasn't? Did it right? Okay, right. Did a Palace player, at least one, have a foot inside the 18-yard box when he ran up to take the penalty? Yes,
it's encroachment.
So
flat end of that.
This
one isn't open to interpretation. He's encroached.
My argument here is, and it's down to the next to this. Darren England was the VAR yesterday.
Yeah.
For Wolves versus Arsenal, and in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, allowed an awful decision where I think a lot of that would have been to do with the referee hierarchy. He's not going to want to overrule Michael Oliver. His reward for that is to then be VAR again today. A couple of reasons that I don't agree with that. Why wouldn't you take him out the far end line because his name's being thrown out in the press? Take him out the far end line because Michael Oliver can make that mistake. Because I'm going to call it a mistake. He can make that mistake, and as long as he makes the mistake, and a VAR official goes round and goes, actually no, call him up on it, fine, not a problem. But his name's going to be thrown out more because more people are going to be more sympathetic to Michael Oliver because he's given a red card in the heat of the moment, etc., etc., etc. But Darren England didn't review it. Take him out the far end line, but instead we give him another game the next day, and there's another penalty decision which again I think shouldn't be given and it should be overruled. Yes, he's made the right call in terms of encroachment. That's not why I've not put it down for the encroachment. I put it down for the actual penalty decision altogether. And it just beggars belief that we're literally taking these people. Is there no one else that could have done it?
Yeah.
And now we're talking about two decisions which should have been overruled by the VAR, and they haven't been.
I think this is part of the problem, isn't it? So VAR quite frequently gets things wrong. I think it's very obvious VAR quite frequently gets things wrong. There doesn't seem to ever be any kind of repercussions or punishment for getting things wrong.
Apart from getting relegated to the Championship every now and then.
Which you do one game, you come back up again.
Yeah.
So there's no real penalty for it, which I think is part of the problem as well. We need to be better at holding officials to account. We need to be better at the way in which we implement VAR. This is the whole point of the whole episode. We need to be better at the way in which we implement VAR. We need to be better at the speed in which decisions are made. Because if it takes you 4 or 5 minutes to review a piece of footage, that means it's not clear and obvious. You go with the on-field decision.
Yeah.
Flat.
Yeah.
And yes, correct. That benefits Saints twice yesterday. But it also probably doesn't benefit us on a couple of occasions as well, right? If you cannot make a decision within 60 to 120 seconds, you go with the on-field decision. I think that's what we need to do.
It ties in with the title. That's where it makes it soulless because you're sat and the other problem is you just get. I mean, what did you have in the stadium yesterday? VAR decision, VAR check for penalty, and you sat there going, okay.
Yeah,
and you sat there for minutes like, should I go and get a beer?
Well, here's the other problem as well: is it's not interactive. So in rugby, where there are this is rugby gets this so right, and rugby is different. So in rugby, the game is a little bit more stop-start than in Premier League football. It isn't quite so fast, and it isn't quite so end-to-end more often than not, right? So in Premier League football, things can change like that. It can go from one end to the other in 30 seconds and be in the back of the net. It's a lot less likely to happen in rugby. Not impossible, but it is less likely to happen. So rugby has a little bit more freedom to bringing these video decisions. However, and you've seen this, and I've seen this, there are occasions when, let's say, a tackle goes in, and the ref doesn't do anything, and play stops because the tackle's gone in, and maybe there's a breakdown, and maybe it's a scrum or something. And then what happens is it goes up on the big screen, and they replay the tackle, and you hear the crowd go, ooh, and the ref goes, hang on a minute, stop. What's the crowd just made a noise at? Put that back up on the screen for me. And he'll stand there and watch it and be like, can we review this? And then it will get replayed and replayed and replayed on the screen. And you can see the crowd watching it. And when the ref then goes on the microphone as well, by the way, which is great. Yeah, we've pulled this back. That is a reckless challenge. I'm going to give a yellow card or whatever he's going to do. Okay. And at that point, I think most of the crowd go, yeah. Right? In the Premier League at the moment, at football at the moment, what happens is the ref goes, hang on, yep, cool. And then the stadium announcer goes, this is being checked, possible foul, VAR, right? And a big sign comes up on the giant screens we've got at St Mary's saying, checking for foul, VAR. And nothing else. We don't see a single replay. So people then, you watch them getting their phones out, go into streaming services or to Twitter to try and see a replay, whether they can go, that's a fair decision or that's a bad decision.
Yeah.
The fans in the stadium, the ones that paid money to be there, are being kept completely in the dark as to what's actually going on and what he's watching. And I think you remove some of the animosity towards the officials if you're putting it up on the screen and you're drawing that offside line for Fernandez's goal and going, he is offside. A lot of fans will go, okay, yeah, I can see. But you have to. I personally have to wait because I don't. My service at St Mary's shows me I've got five bars of 5G, but I don't think I could load a 480p thumbnail. It doesn't seem to want to work. So I can't look. So I have to wait till I get home and go and look at the replay and go, okay, I can maybe see how that was given as a penalty against Aribo, right? Yeah. I can't do that in the ground, and they don't show us on the screen. There's just so many little things where I'm like, this wouldn't be difficult. It's an easy fix. Which brings us on to the fact that the ref announcements in the League Cup are coming up. So in the semi-finals, the second leg of the semi-finals, they're coming up soon, and the refs will be announcing again to stadiums their decision and why they've made the decision. Yeah, which I think is interesting.
We had one, didn't we, in the first legs, which was the offside decision, which wasn't contentious, it was offside. So it's just, again, we'll go with it. It is accountability and consistency, which you see, and there are times, there's so many arguments, and I tried to balance this out in terms of the arguments that we have for and against VAR. And the one there that I've got into the Championship is one where you potentially would do for, but there's just so much. Yeah, why not?
I think it's a good idea implemented terribly, and I think for me personally, VAR, looking at all these things we've just talked about, it hasn't removed the discussion points, it hasn't removed the argument points. Apart from it seems to give people. They seem to think they have more evidence to back their particular argument up with a million replays slowed right down. And then people are getting more angry because VAR doesn't overturn a decision. So in the past, if we look at that red card for the Arsenal player, which you are dead certain was not a red card, right? In the past, that happens. People are angry on social media afterwards because it was a red card that shouldn't have been a red card. And that's kind of it. Nowadays, people are angry because it's a red card. And then they're double angry because VAR reviewed it and it kept a red card. And then the PGML come out and say, we think it was definitely a red card. Now they're triple angry. And so we're like, well, what benefit is this giving us? We're just winding people up more. And I think that, like I said, the chants that were coming out at St Mary's Stadium yesterday, I think the Southampton fans specifically are sick and fed up of VAR this season. Absolutely sick and fed up. And what's been quite interesting on social media, specifically on Twitter, is the amount of people that have said, I'm looking forward to the Championship. No, I'm looking forward to the Championship, but mostly the reason why I'm looking forward to the Championship is because I feel like we can go into most games feeling like we can compete. And when you watch your team play, you want to watch your team play in a contest where you feel like you can compete. And I feel like at the moment, against certain teams in the Premier League, we don't feel like we can compete. I'm one of those idiots that goes to every single football game thinking, Saints can win this.
Yeah, you're nutters.
Because we've seen them in the past, not playing very well, being in the bottom of the table and turning over a Man United or a Man City. And I've seen that happen. And for some reason, my little brain this season is still saying, we can win this. We can win this. We can win this. And there was moments I was at Man United and up until the 80th minute thinking, God, we could win this, right? So I'm one of those people And I think that VAR is ruining a lot of the excitement. And I think that although I'm looking forward to the championship because I feel like actually we can compete, and me thinking we can win won't just be a blind hope at every single game. A lot of people are saying they're looking forward to the championship for one reason only: no VAR.
However, I guarantee you, I would put a bet on something if I thought I had something worthwhile. I bet you any money next season we'll be stood in those stands and the decision will get given and you'll go, oh, wish we had VAR to give. VAR would have given that.
I bet I don't.
I bet you do.
I bet I don't.
I bet you do.
I bet I don't. Not unless it's a laugh. Right, other news and previews. We're going to skim through this because we're 10 minutes over already, team. So, the under-21s win again.
Yeah, they won 3-0 versus Anderlecht in a game in the Kids Champions League Cup competition thing.
Yep.
Sam Ammo scored a cracking goal. They also won away at Chelsea, which is very impressive. I think it was at Kings Meadow. If you haven't seen any of the highlights, it'll be on the Saints app. Gavin Bazzouni made an absolute worldie save. And I mean, it is absolutely superb. He gets down to the left-hand side. He's got no right to stop it. A couple of goals, one for Jake Robinson, who's quite a promising little youngster coming through. So Southampton moved up to 5th, I think.
Sam Ammo is another one we talked about earlier with some of the other players like Don Ballard and Ed Wellington, and bring him into the side now and get them experience early. Sam Ammo is another one. I'd bring him in.
Sam Ammo was more in the frame before Tyler Diblin was, so it's just a question of what's changed.
I'd bring him into the squad, and I'd be looking at giving him minutes in the Premier League before we go down. That's what I would be doing with Sam Ammo personally. All right, so we've got the Ipswich preview. They're not good either. Let's be honest.
They're better than us.
That's not hard. Let's be fair. That's not hard. But they're not doing very well either. They're also currently getting battered. If there was any chance of 3 points from a game for the rest of this season, this one, I'm sorry, people who are in chat who are Ipswich fans, because I know a couple, this is it. This is the game where we could get 3 points. If we get 3 points from this, that puts us on 9, right? If we're on 9 points, we're one win away then from not having Derby's record.
I think
one win. And we've still got an away game at Tottenham. Just saying, chat. Still got every other promoted team has gone to Tottenham and won.
Which
just throwing it out there.
It means we won't. It means we won't. Ipswich, I've put in here. Is it a must win? I think it's a game that we need to be looking at. We're in terms of where we are in the league. We've still got to play. Obviously, we've still got to play Ipswich again, Palace again, Leicester against that. Obviously, Leicester had funny enough again, like you said, Leicester had a great win at Spurs today. I think this is the game that we need to look to go in and get a result from, even if it's just, as I said at the start of the stream, it will show us roughly where our level is now. Yeah. So if Ipswich go, and Ipswich have had some good results this season, they've obviously beaten Chelsea, they won away at Spurs. They've also had some really poor results, and they've started to be battered, as you've said.
Their heads are down.
Our heads are so far down, we're like an ostrich. I think it's just one of those games that we need to look at now, and Jurek has got to have it. He's got a full week with the squad. There's no massive interruptions, and just go, right, just get your head down and just.
Do we know if Suleiman will be fit for this game?
He should be. He's back. He should be back in training.
And our new signing, the Dane, also logically should be in contention.
He was training for the first time on Friday, so he should also be in.
Okay.
So logically, if you're going to go with what Jurek has said and the time frames that you've got, Ramsdale will be back in goal. I'm assuming the back five will be fairly similar, apart from Wellington apparently is going to be in. We'll see how that goes.
Yep.
I'd imagine the midfield is going to be fairly similar, and I'd imagine that Suleiman is going to be back alongside on our up front. In terms of Ipswich, they've put in a lot of good performances this year. They just seem to be running out of steam. They have strengthened with Julian Enciso coming into the team. Obviously, Liam Delap has been a constant threat up front. I actually think that he's in the England team that made the final a few years ago. I actually think that the exploitation there is through getting down the wings and through people like Calvin Phillips. So we'll see what happens.
We're both going. Like I said, if you're there at the weekend, come and say hello. If you do see us and you fancy buying us a beer. I know you're going to say you don't drink, but I'll drink both of them. So we'll be there on Saturday. I would love to get 3 points out of that. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win Saints.
I said to you beforehand, for some reason at the moment, I feel really stupidly optimistic. I think I'll probably agree with that. If it's us, we'll probably spend all that time travelling up, play like absolute balls and rubbish, and that seems to happen every time we go to an away game.
So I'd love to see a win again. I've only seen one so far this season.
Two?
I mean, granted, well, no, in the league.
Oh, okay, all right.
Granted, the only one we've got, but And then finally, we've got. I won't touch on this last point because it's too late now. But we have got a new section,
a new segment. Yeah, we thought about this all by ourselves.
New segment, Skate Watch.
Yeah,
because there's a possibility we'll be playing them next season. So Skate Watch is in right now, right?
Yeah.
And what we will do is we'll only be bringing up Skatewatch when they lose, which they did. So we got beat 3-1. They got beat 5-1. Was it 5-1? 4-1?
They lost 5-1.
5-1.
Yeah.
They got beat 5-1.
I think they were 4 or 5-0 down at half time.
Yeah. Skatewatch.
Yeah, they're not having a very good year of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Let us know your predictions in chat right now. Well, not in chat, but in the comments after the stream, you wonderful human beings. Because typically these videos only really get watched for the first 3 days. So we'll be able to see all your scores before we head off to Ipswich on Saturday. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you for joining me again. We are again live next Sunday, post-Ipswich. Yep, so next Sunday it's the same time, 8 p.m, live on YouTube. Come and join us in the live chat. We want to get those numbers up. We want to get to 100 live viewers. And then Ash will do a naked lap on stream.
I mean, I did tell someone once that I'd get a tattoo if we stayed up this season, but that's not going to happen, so...
There we go. If you are listening on demand on iTunes or Spotify or any of the other podcast services, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you so much for downloading and following. We would love it if you could join us live at 8 p.m. on YouTube. Thank you to everybody who has sat and watched us tonight and have engaged in the chat. You people are wonderful. It gives us some extra points to talk about. And it's interesting because sometimes we can have a very specific point of view and it's great to see other people's point of view. If you're watching on demand and you haven't already, please make sure you smash that subscribe button for us. It's really important. And if you hit that bell notification icon, YouTube will notify you when we go live, when we drop a new video. So it'd be fantastic if you could hit that for us, because then you get notified and you can come and hang out with us on the stream. We will be at some point in the future looking to, I want to get the rest of the season out of the way mostly first, but we'll be in the future looking at making improvements to the show as well. So thank you so much for your wonderful support. Thank you for hitting that like button, all that kind of stuff. It's really important to us and we love you all for it. Obviously it's a tough time being a Saints fan right now, so it's super important that we all just kind of put our virtual arms around each other and sing Kumbaya by the fire whilst we all sob.
I'll just hide behind the sofa.
With our pants off. Right? Anyway, you people are wonderful. We've got some final words. Ash, anything you'd like to say?
Up Saints.
Up the Saints. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.